Consciousness podcast. If the two of you would be so kind, would you mind introducing yourselves?
Thanks, Adrian, for having us. I'm Amesh. I play lead guitar in Mammon's Throne.
I'm Johnny. I do rhythm guitar and backing vocals in Mammon's Throne.
Guys, welcome. Let's get this question out of the way. How would you describe the music of Mammon's Throne? What sort of music would you say you play?
Oh, this is a challenge. um, I would say, look, predominant. I think overall you could class it as doom metal, if not, some form of extreme metal. But we are a real melting pot when it comes to genre. We've got little bits of black metal in there. There's bits of death metal. There's goth stuff in there. It's kind of a bit of everything, but I think for the sake of ease of identifying it, if you enjoy Doom, you'll probably enjoy us, but it's not as straightforward, perhaps.
Amish, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, like Johnny basically hit the nail on the head. It's like an eclectic mix of like a bunch of different genres. We sort of bring all our influences in and don't like to limit ourselves to, just the doom sphere per se. Obviously, it's sort of like it all harkens back to that, funeral doom, death doom sound, but we definitely aren't shy to blend in other elements.
I mean, as far as that sound, would you say that your songs are mostly on the slow side?
I think with this album, we've picked up the pace a little bit. I think there's like a blend into like tempo wise. We've got slower numbers like Elixir, but then also faster ones like Census Death. But within those songs, because most of them are like, 9 minutes long, there's
Yeah.
like faster sections and slower sections. We just like to work with, different pacings.
Right. Can you tell me a little bit about what brought you guys together and what your goals were when you first started?
Yeah, cool. So Johnny's the newest member. Like, though I say new, we've known him for years. But we started off as a four-piece, and I think we started off as a black metal band, not under the name Mammon's Throne. It was Matthew, me, Sam, and Nick joined us straight out of school. Our goals were to sort of, form a black metal band, but we just couldn't piece it together, find other members, and then we were like, you know what? What if we took a chance and did like doom metal instead? Because like at the end of the day, black metal slowed down to me is doom metal, or doom metal sped up is black metal. Um, you know, so we were just like, let's do the opposite, slow down and see what happens, and it just clicked. So we were like, well, that's the formula, that's what we're going to do, and obviously the sound has evolved. And I think with this album, with the addition of Johnny, we've really sort of come into our own in terms of sound and where we want to go with this direction of music that we've chosen.
Johnny, I'd like to get to how you ended up joining the band, but before we do that, and you said something interesting, which is that black metal slowed down would be doom metal, and doom metal sped up would be black metal. This is something that is kind of a pet project of mine, which is if you took like hardcore from the 80s and slowed it all the way down, you get sludge metal. Do you know what I mean? Like so much of this stuff, like riff wise, is just it's exactly the same. It's just the tempos change. Do you want to elaborate on that? Like, do you feel like in terms of uh, you know, keys and melodies and stuff like that, there's something intrinsically doomy about black metal?
100%. Like if you want to go back all the way to the start, if you take De Mysteriis by Mayhem, there's so much doom on that. Like it was probably not referred to as doom metal, in that context, but like a lot of those riffs, even at the current pacing they're at, sound like that. Like, or if you took a riff, say like Funeral Fog or something like that, slowed it down, that would sound even more, doom. And there's bands like Crypt Sermon and stuff who've reimagined some of those Mayhem songs. Like I think they've got a cover of De Mysteriis, and that's a really good example of what that sound would sound like slowed down. But like even like other early black metal bands, like even with Bathory and stuff, that mid-pace sound, I'd say arguably is just like all those riffs could be interpreted as doom metal riffs if you slow them down. And I just think like the sort of visceral nature and the the funerally nature of black metal sort of like plays into death doom and funeral doom. I think stoner doom is slightly separate to that, but like if you're talking about like death and funeral doom, 100% that comes from black metal and death metal.
I mean, there's something intrinsically like mournful and kind of oppressive about that sound, right? Like even if you just took the melodies without the tremolo picking and the blast beats and all that stuff, it would be extremely sad music.
100%, and chuck a harmony on that, slow it down by 20 BPM, and you've got funeral doom song.
Yeah, absolutely. So Johnny, how did you end up getting involved with this band? And what did you
Well,
like about their music?
yeah, well, so right before um, in Australia, in Melbourne, we went into lockdown like March 2020, and uh, we've been really fortunate in Melbourne specifically. We've had like a lot of really good doom bands sort of rise up, and then they might fizzle, or they don't often stick around very long. So it was kind of quiet-ish at that point. And I just happened to show up to the Mammon's Throne album launch at the time for the first record, Forward Unto Flame, and I watched these guys as a four-piece, and I had no idea who they were. I got to go do something tonight, and this looks promising. Let's have a look. And it was like seeing them live in my head. I was like, oh, this is the type of doom I've been waiting for, or that I've missed, or has perhaps been like a gap in the market where it's doom, but it's not just slow because everyone plays slow, or we're not just going to play one riff because that's what it's like on Dope Smoker or something like that. Like it had taste. The guitar work was interesting. In Mammon's, we play in D, like we drop one step only instead of like drop A and all of that. So pardon me, you can hear the riffs and all of that, and they just really blew me away. So I thought they were awesome, but then unfortunately, a week later, we ended up in like a lockdown for months and months and months and months and months. So it sort of slowed the momentum down for them, and we ran into each other just out and about on New Year's Eve, and I was like, oh, I remember you guys, and I hadn't spoken to them or anything in between, and so we just became friends there. I was in a black metal band at the time, Hybrid Nightmares, so I booked them to play a show with us as well. And yeah, we just maintained that friendship, and we got along so long before any prospect of me joining the band came up. And then I just started to hassle Amesh like once every 2 weeks. You guys are great, but you just need one more guitar. When you do a solo, kind of dips out a little bit. You just need a bit more meat in there. So I think I hassled him for a few months from memory, and then it just worked out. But I think it worked out well because we all got along before any prospect of that. So we kind of reverse engineered it rather than like a blind audition and see if it works out. Like even if it hadn't worked out, we would still be friends, I assume. So yeah, I sort of gaslit my way in. I said, you guys are good, but you could be better.
Yeah,
I mean,
we bonded over our love for like investigative videos, air crash investigation primarily, and that sort of brought us together. It wasn't even really music first, and then music came after.
Johnny, I worked in marketing and advertising for a long time, and kind of the formula is uh, you suggest a problem or you highlight a problem, and then you propose yourself as a solution. So well done.
Yeah,
And
it
it's worked
worked
out
out.
great. So
I mean, Amish, is that something that you agreed with? Do you feel like you needed that second guitar to beef up the sound, like Paradise Lost style or
100%.
whatever?
My motive as well, when Johnny sort of proposed the idea to me, I've already had that vision in my head because I felt a little bit limited on the first couple of albums as a single guitar player because obviously I didn't want to do anything on the recordings that I couldn't replicate live. So when it came to like counter melodies and harmonies and stuff like that, I was obviously very limited in what I could do because obviously I couldn't let the chunkiness drop out when I play the lead. So I could only do it in bursts. But now it feels like that limitation has been removed now that Johnny's in there, and I can do far more interesting things on guitar. Both of us can, and it also just sounds way better on stage. Like I can play more maniacal solos and stuff because that rhythm section remains intact. And also having him on backing vocals has really added another dimension to the sound where Matthew and him sort of can layer their vocals now.
Yeah. I'd like to speak to you guys about your songwriting. Do all the songs start with the two of you?
No, it starts with all five of us actually.
Okay.
So we've got I don't know whether it's unique. I'd say it's more old school where like we would each have ideas and we'd bring them into our rehearsal space and then we'd put all of that together in real time together as a five piece in the studio, jam the songs out and write the songs organically, like live almost. We don't really write songs like at home, like one person wouldn't really finish a piece and bring it in. I think the only time that's ever happened was the song At the Threshold of Eternity on this album and Clandestine Unholy Rites. But every other song we've all written collaboratively together in the rehearsal space.
But are we talking like jamming or like
Yeah.
co-creating? And okay, cool.
Yeah, I think like what will happen is someone might bring a riff in and we'll go, what do we think about this? And then a drum beat over that or that. And then there have been a lot of examples where there's been a just random idea. What if we did this or did that? And we just try it. And a lot of stuff, might not, it might get half there, then someone changes it. Or actually do blast beats instead of that. And then it works. But it's kind of like there's a spark which could be a riff which one person brings in and the remaining 95% will be live with each other, figure it out in that moment. And we have a really unfortunate stroke of luck where we'll be 5 minutes away from when we need to pack up for the day and get back to the rest of our lives, and someone will just, well, what if we try this riff? And it's like a random thing and it's, oh fuck, quickly record it. So there's a lot of moments on the album when I listen back to it and I go, oh, I remember this little improvised idea or this quick thing which was very random. Even Elixir, it was like a joke. We're like, oh, what if we did a breakdown? And we laughed and then we tried it and we're like, that's too heavy not to do. So it's
Yeah, Elixir is badass.
thank you.
Uh, Amish, you have your own studio. Do you guys demo stuff as you're writing, or do you like phone recordings or anything like that?
Phone recordings are where it starts. And then we'll probably, I think like, well, Johnny's really good at programming drums. So like he'll put like a foundation down and then we'll just, do some scratch takes for riffs and stuff. Usually like, I mean, we didn't really do that too much with the last album, like just because like the songs came together in the studio themselves. And we sort of had them ready to go, like off the bat, really. But I reckon this time around for the next album that we're doing, we're going to sort of do it that way, demo everything in the studio from start to finish as soon as ideas keep coming, just because with Hammerheart, we plan to release albums more frequently as opposed to the 3-year gap we took between the last one and this. And that means, demoing actively in the studio. Yeah.
At what point do Matthew's vocals come in? Does he wait till the arrangements are finished?
No, he's actually really good at just like spontaneously just like churning out lyrics and stuff. And like most of the lyrics that you hear on the album, he just wrote on the spot. Like he'd hear like the song and obviously the riffs first, and then it like triggers something in him and he just starts spewing lyrics and like vocal ideas. He's really good at that.
You'll see, like, we'll be rehearsing once we've figured out 4 bars worth of a verse or something. He'll just be like typing on his phone. And originally, I was like, oh, I wonder if he's like, what's he doing on his phone? And then I'm like, oh, he's writing lyrics down. So when I see him doing that, I'm like, it's like that loading sign. I'm like, oh yeah, something's happening. Just keep playing.
That's awesome. So on the day that we're having this conversation, you guys just released your third album, which is called My Body to the Worms, which came out through Hammerheart Records. Tell me about your intentions for this album. Going into this album, what did you guys want to accomplish?
I think the main thing was to sort of like expand our reach sound wise, because we've been fortunate enough to have done decently well in Australia through international support and stuff like that with the second album. And then I think with this one, we wanted to sort of target the European market more because I feel like our sound resonates with that audience quite a bit. So we really wanted to, up the production, up the songwriting, capture that live energy, which I felt was lacking in the last two albums, and then deliver that product to a European label, which worked out well with Hammerheart. So that was the main intention, and then lay the foundations for us to eventually tour Europe.
Johnny, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where, at the point when I joined the band, the second record was pretty much in its mastering phase, or roughly it was like ready-ish to go. But then when we would play it live with five of us and, getting more accustomed to the five-piece arrangements and that, it started to feel like the live version of the band compared to what had been released to that date. There was a bit of a gap. It wasn't as consistent. Like if you heard the second album, it's a great album. I really like it. But then if you saw us live, it's like, oh, this is the true way to enjoy this band. So I know that like at least production wise, the goal was to match that. I think in terms of the songwriting or our plans for it, it was very organic. We would just go, oh, I brought this riff in. We had no like foundation, or we're going to do this many songs or this many interludes or a concept album. And we kind of just had a collection of songs, and there's some stuff on there on the album which, late 2023 we had finished it, written it. So it was kind of quite organic how it pieced together. But I think conceptually we all kind of knew, well, if you listen to what we've got out versus what we've been doing live, and after the second album came out, we were really fortunate. We played some really significant shows with, I'm going to forget some here, but, Triumph of Death, Rotting Christ, Bellacore, Conan, Pallbearer, My Dying Bride. And so we'd been busy in between albums, but we also thought that what you can buy and take home in your hand to listen to is probably not an accurate reflection of the live band we are. Whereas now, I feel much more confident with that.
I mean, Amish, you mentioned the energy, the live energy. Do you feel like that's what was missing from those previous albums?
Yeah, I think so. Like the second one was tracked live. There was no click track or anything involved. No, nor was there a click track for this one. But I think we obviously, because it was only our second album that we did in the studio, we maybe held back a little bit when we played, slowed things down a little bit. We definitely play much faster live. And I think that, had its benefits in terms of like letting all the reverbs and all that stuff bloom. But I think with this one, we struck a really good balance between what we do live and then also not having it, messy or too fast, to sort of really capture the detail and the textures and all that stuff, which is a really core facet of the Mammon's Throne sound. So I think it was a really good balance between, the live energy and studio. And we're pretty happy with that.
Johnny, you mentioned the interludes. We discussed your songwriting, but at what point did you guys decide that you wanted a few interludes between songs and you wanted the album to flow that way?
Well, we had one of them we had developed as a lead into Elixir because we had started experimenting with some samples or walk-ons and things like that in a live setting. And, we're quite theatrical. We'll have candles and things on stage. So we're like, well, how do we do audio candles? And, how do we capture that vibe with the record? So I think they came out that way. So, we had one which is a very sort of obvious prelude to Elixir, and then Amesh sort of went away and pieced together another one which is just is perfect in terms of where it sits and how it sets up the second side of the album. So I think it was kind of one of those things that was later in the piece. We didn't focus on interludes or anything throughout the songwriting process. It was kind of like when we go live, all right, if our set list is A, B, C, D, we should have something to usher in this last song. And also if there's a guitar swap or tuning guitars, that's very helpful too, to maintain the ambience instead of just staring at the top of our heads. So I think that's how they came together.
Amish, do you want to say anything about the interludes?
Yeah, like look, when we presented the record to Hammerheart first, it didn't have the interludes on it, and then I think it was Guido that from Hammerheart that suggested that we add interludes in to really tie everything together. And I think he was like, he hit the nail on the head, because Clandestine Unholy Rites is more of a synth heavy thing that sort of like really creates that, you know, sense of foreboding before Elixir hits. And it's also like more like what you like when you watch us live. That's the sample we played before Elixir, so it's more of a complete representation of that. At the Threshold of Eternity, I had the piano piece written a while back because I just tend to get like inspired to play, you know, all these piano bits because I, and then I'll just keep them recorded. And then I was going through my folder of piano bits because I wanted something that was piano like for the second interlude. And then I found that piece. I was like, oh, this is like something I've always wanted to use, but I'd forgotten that I'd written it. And then I just picked up a guitar and played the first bit sort of like off the bat and then just layered it. And then I was like, oh, where would this sit like best on the album? And for some reason, like we like experimented with every track position. And then when we put it before An Angel's Grace after Every Day More Sickened, it was like, yep, that's perfect. Because you have a 10-minute song that's like relentless from start to finish, and then it like almost like brings everything down a little bit and then gives you a slower pace thing, and then it ushers in Angel's Grace perfectly. So it's a good little conduit between those two songs.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you record the album at your own studio? Did you record the whole thing at your studio?
Yes and no. So the drums and bass were recorded at the Black Lodge, which is run by Joel Taylor, who's an amazing engineer who worked with us on the second album and has mixed us live a bunch of times. And he's like in terms of a drum sound, he's phenomenal with like recording drums. So also because we tracked the drums and bass live, Johnny and I had to play it, so I couldn't obviously track it. So Joel and I worked together on deciding between mics and stuff, preamps, all that good stuff. So track the drums live with the bass, and then Johnny and I recorded our guitars again in my studio, and then vocals as well. Johnny and Matthew recorded them together, and then we did overdubs at mine. So it was like a mix between two different studios. I think there were a few guitar DIs as well that we recorded with Joel that we retained from the live tracks.
Okay, cool. Do you want to say anything about the gentleman who mastered the album?
Definitely a massive hero of ours, especially mine. You know, Mr. Frederick Nordstrom. Obviously well known for his work with Dimmu Borgir, Arch Enemy, Opeth, just to name a few. But it was really the Dimmu sessions that like piqued my interest like ages ago when I was first like learning sound engineering. And it was always a personal goal of mine to have his credits next to mine. And I mean, it's an absolute honor to, you know, share that. And just to sort of like most of the mixing techniques I use, I learned from him anyway, watching his videos, you know, when YouTube was first becoming a thing. He was one of the first guys to, you know, share his secrets of how he would get that European sound. And that particular sound was something I really wanted to capture in this album. And there was no better engineer to put that final, you know, bit of finesse on it and really sort of sculpt it to sort of fit within that Euro market. And I think he did like a job better than we could have ever imagined. So it was an added bonus, you know, having his name on there. But like he really, really, really captured the vision we had in our head, and there's no one better than him to do that.
I mean, he defined the sound of metal for, you know, the last 30 years. I think, you know, maybe
100%. And
yeah, the most, you know, the most influential album of the last 30 years was Slaughter of the Soul, which he recorded. I mean, you spoke a little bit about wanting to recapture some of your live sound and some of that European sound. Is that more or less what you wanted Frederick to bring to this?
sort of. So like I guess with the energy and stuff, that's usually captured in the recording and mixing phase and retaining those dynamics. But obviously the final, like, you know, limiting and all of that and the final EQ that a mastering engineer puts on can, I mean, yeah, I've seen it destroy records before, but like Frederick did it in such a way where like it didn't sort of squash the mix or anything like that. It still retained a lot of those dynamics that we captured in the recording and mixing phase. And then he just added his little signature sheen to it that just made it, you know, what it is.
Johnny, do you want to say anything about Frederick's work? About the fact that
It was, you know, really impressive. I think as well, having uh, been a fan of the band before joining it. I'd spent a good amount of time listening to the first two albums, streaming them. And then now when you stream the first two and next to this, and yes, the mixing will obviously play a huge factor in that. I listen to it and I feel like satisfied. I'm like, okay, if no one saw us live, like, here's a CD. Yeah, I'm repeating myself a bit, but yes, it worked out really well.
So the album came out today. What do you guys have planned in terms of live shows, festival appearances, things like that?
Well, we're playing the album launch show tomorrow. And then we've got like a couple of regional shows, and then interstate ones to back the album up. And we've got a really special tour coming up in September, the end of September, start of October. I'm not, it's, well, by the time this interview comes out, it'll be revealed anyway. But we're supporting Candlemass when they come
Oh,
down to
awesome.
Australia for their first ever national tour. So that's the big one we've got at the end of the year. And in the interim, we sort of want to focus on getting the next album out as well, because we tend to play, and we played like in Australia like heaps last year. So we obviously won't play as much this year, and oversaturate ourselves. But obviously, a few select shows to really promote the album. But then, yeah, getting onto the next one is the main priority, and then Europe is definitely in our sights after that.
Johnny, anything you want to say about playing with Candlemass?
I'm very excited. I've had a little Epicus Doomus Metallicus patch on my vest since I was like 18 years old. I'm 34 now, so very, very excited about this opportunity. And I might have a patch, but Amesh has a tattoo, so there it is.
Excellent. Amish, say
Yeah.
something so that you show up on camera.
So was
Uh,
that?
you have
Yeah.
to
Oh yeah,
say something.
there you go.
Yeah.
There's the Epicus tattoo done by the same guy that did our album art, Oscar Bonan.
That's awesome. Yeah, I don't have a Candlemass tattoo or patch. I did have Epicus Doomicus Metallicus on cassette. If you young people need me to explain what that is, feel free to write me a letter on paper and send it to your post office.
If you ever want a tape trade one day,
I'll have
definitely.
to find some way to dig it up. It's in an attic somewhere.
Yep.
So, My Body to the Worms is out now through Hammerheart Records. Johnny and Amish, please tell everyone how they can get the new album.
So there's multiple ways. You can order it off our Bandcamp, the Mammon Throne Bandcamp. You can get it off Hammerheart Records website, or you could get it off Napalm Records website. So take your pick. And that's for vinyl. There's two variants at the vinyl. There's a black and the drink the blood variant, and then there's also a CD. And obviously, if you want the digital album, you can get it off our Bandcamp.
Now, as far as merch, t-shirts and stuff like that, is it all going through the label or through your Bandcamp page?
The current run of merch is will be on our Bandcamp after tomorrow. We've got an Elixir long sleeve, we've got album art long sleeve, and an album art short sleeve. So all of that will be available on our Bandcamp. And I'm sure that Hammerheart and Napalm will have some of their own merch for sale soon.
And if people want to follow the band online and get updates on tours and, all the details about that Candlemass tour, what's the best way to follow you guys?
Facebook, Instagram, just search for Mammon's Throne. We're on that. We've also got our YouTube going as well now. Hammerheart sort of does our videos. If you want to watch the three music videos we released as singles, all of them on YouTube on Hammerheart's channel as well. So there's a video for Departed, a video for Elixir, and a video for Everyday More Sickened. So make sure to check those out as well. But yeah, Instagram, Facebook, best way to keep in touch with what we're doing.
And Amish, do you want to say anything about your studio? Do you work with other bands?
Yeah, so I work with quite a few bands from Australia. Mysterious Audio is the name of the studio. If you want to get in touch with me, send me a message on Instagram, or you can go on mysteriousaudio.com and send me a message there. I tend to work more with mixing these days and recording. But yeah, there's a bunch of bands I worked with recently. A few Giant, awesome stoner doom band from Melbourne did their stuff. I'm currently working on a record with this awesome rock and roll band from Melbourne as well called Fly. So that's an ongoing project. And then other bands include Bong Cleaner. That was a really cool band I worked with. And Who Bastard, like a D-beat crust punk type thing, and a bunch of others. But yep, shoot me a message if you ever want to do some old school-esque production, and we can get the ball rolling.
So I was actually supposed to be in Melbourne this week for Melbourne Death Fest, but
Oh yeah, I was meant
the
to mix
trip
that.
the trip didn't happen. But anything else happening around you guys in terms of fests that might be interesting to talk about?
Well, Melbourne Death Fest is done by the same promoters bringing down Candlemass, your mate Bookings. He's got another fest that he runs called Brute Fest in I think that is next month. That's meant to happen. So it's a very similar vibe to Melbourne Death Fest. Warbringer is headlining that, I think. And there's always shows happening in Melbourne. There's such an amazing local music scene here. It's almost hard to keep up with who's playing what, but like it just any Friday, Saturday, you'd have some killer gig at one of the iconic venues, the Tote, the Bendigo Hotel, Northwood Social Club. Like just walk in and you can watch some awesome lineup that they'll be hosting.
That's awesome. It was really nice chatting. It was really nice chatting with you guys. Is there anything else you want to say? Anything else you want the listeners to know?
Johnny?
Well, thank you to everyone who's watched our videos, our music videos, and has purchased the album, whether digitally, physically, or I think those are the only two options, really. But yeah, we just want to thank everyone for that. It is the day of the launch, or the day of the release of the album, Friday the 13th. So we got lucky with spooky dates like that. So yeah, we're really proud of this one. We look forward to getting in front of people around the world, um, most likely probably next year, to make that happen. But yeah, we're very grateful.
Yeah, it's actually 6 years to the day since we released Forward Unto Flame, the first album. So that was a little nice touch there. But yeah, thank you so much to everyone who supported us so far, and kept us alive. Like we wouldn't be here if not for the people listening to our music. We'd be five very sad bedroom musicians. Nothing wrong with that either. If that's what you want to do. But, yeah, thank you for giving us a platform, and yeah, thanks for all the support so far.
Thank you guys.
Thank you for having us.
Awesome. Thank you.